Breaking news, we're going back live to police headquarters. An update on human remains found at a construction site in Rosedale. Let's listen in.
Dale Avenue. Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for being here. My name is Renee Foley. I'm the Detective Sergeant of the 53 Division Criminal Investigation Bureau. I am joined here today by Inspector Hank Insigna, Detective Sergeant Les Dunkley of the Homicide and Missing Person Unit, as well as Detective Alex Wallace from the 53 Division Criminal Investigation Bureau, and Inspector Heather Nichols of 53 Division. On Monday, May the 2nd, 2022, at approximately 4:45 p.m., police received a 911 call to attend a residential property on Dale Avenue regarding possible found human remains. This property is unoccupied and under construction. Upon arrival, officers located what they believed to be human remains inside a construction disposal bin. The attending coroner examined the remains and ordered an autopsy. 53 Division Criminal Investigations commenced an investigation and immediately enlisted the assistance from the Toronto Police Service Homicide and Missing Person Unit. I would like to express my gratitude to the person who found the remains and called the police immediately, as well as the neighbors and homeowners in the area who have been so helpful over the last several days. On Wednesday, May the 4th, a post-mortem examination was completed by the Ontario Forensic Pathology Services. Evidence obtained during the course of that post-mortem examination now tells us the following. The remains of that were located are sadly of those of a little girl, possibly between the ages of 4 to 7 years. The child is described as black, of African or mixed African descent. She is 3 feet, 6 inches tall with a thin build. She has all of her teeth. She has black curly hair sectioned in 4 short ponytails, 2 of which were braided and secured with black and blue elastic bands. She was wrapped in a crochet blanket inside of a plastic bag. That bag was wrapped in a colorful blanket, which you can see here today. We believe that she was left in the area sometime between Thursday, April the 28th at 12 o'clock noon and Monday, May 2nd at 4:45 p.m. Although we believe she was placed there between that time, the forensic pathologist believes that she may have been deceased as early as late as last summer or fall 2021 or perhaps earlier. We only have the preliminary results of the postmortem examination at this time, and therefore will not be commenting on cause of death. We have 2 items of clothing associated to the child that was found, and we're hoping that someone will recognize these items, which will help us identify who she is. As you can see here to my right, there's the 2 pictures of the baby blanket and the red cloth. We are asking any member of the public who has any information whatsoever, whether that be video surveillance in the area, which we haven't already obtained, including dash cam video, or anyone who recognizes the blanket or victim description, to please call us immediately at 416-808-5300 or anonymously through Crime Stoppers at 222-TIPS. I will now turn over to Inspector Hank Insigna to briefly outline the response of the specialized units of the Toronto Police Service. Thank you very much.
Good morning, and thank you for being here. Thank you to Detective Sergeant Foley for providing the background to this investigation. The Toronto Police Service Investigative Response Plan follows a very specific flow. A suspicious death investigation is initially responded to by the Divisional Criminal Investigators. On Monday, when this little girl was found, 53 Division responded immediately with the coroner's office. The Homicide and Missing Persons Unit were immediately notified and also attended the scene. The Missing Persons Unit are specialized investigators whose mandate includes the identification of unidentified human remains. They are working closely right now with the Homicide Investigative Response Team to assist 53 Division. They have access to databases which encompass outstanding missing children from across the country. We expect further results from forensic pathology services in the coming weeks. We are investigating this death at its highest level, just like a homicide investigation, and we have the investigative assets in place to deal with wherever the evidence takes us. 53 Division, the Homicide and Missing Persons Unit, as well as investigators from the Child and Youth Advocacy Center are all involved. Our first priority now is to establish the identity of this little girl. The investigators will leave no stone unturned, and I reiterate what Detective Sergeant Foley has said. If anyone has any information whatsoever, please call us immediately. We will take any questions.
Inspector Weissman is the homicide.
Well, make no mistake, Steve. Homicide is actively involved in this investigation at every second. And the investigative mindset, as you know, is kids don't just die. Sadly, this is what we're dealing with right now. We've got multiple units involved in a homicide investigative response team, as well as the missing persons unit with 53 Division, with the CYAC, and the best investigators in the Toronto Police Service are working this case with everything that they've got. So we will identify this little girl, and we will be doing all the work that we can for her.
Is it safe to say you will be as a homicide squad, you will monitor this investigation?
More than monitor, we're all over it. We have 6 investigative call teams, as you know, who work cases on a rotating basis. And normally with a suspicious death, you're right, they would monitor it, but this call team is right off the call rotation, and they are directly involved in this investigation with 53 Division. So there's not going to be one piece of information or one piece of evidence that 53 Division is going to have that we're not going to have, so, and vice versa.
Are there any similar missing children cases in Toronto right now that kind of meet these timelines or the age of the child here?
I can tell you so yesterday during the post-mortem is when we got the first general idea of the size of this child and the approximate age. And we've looked at some outstanding missing persons occurrences. There are a couple which come close, but none that strike us right now as definitely being the one. So that's still a work in progress. It's still fairly new information. We literally got that information about 6 o'clock last night and have been digging through it since then. So Detective Shona Patterson is here from our Missing Persons Unit, and if you want any further information on how that process goes with that database across the country, she'd be happy to answer any questions about that.
Inspector, the detective said that it's possible this person may have been deceased for a year, maybe more. A, how unusual is that? And B, how unusual is it that a child could be unaccounted for that long?
Yeah, sadly, we've seen it before. I don't recall myself personally any cases where the pathologist has had to rely on the entomology process to age the time of death of a victim. And so it's a very unusual circumstance that we're dealing with right now, that the potential time of death could have been even earlier than last summer. So again, there's still some tests and processes in the works with Ontario Forensic Pathology Services, and we might be able to tighten that down a little bit more.
Inspector, what are the next steps here in terms of, is it identifying who the remains are and then kind of connecting the dots beyond that?
Yeah, like I said, our first priority right now is to figure out who this little girl is. We've done a lot of the groundwork around the scene in regards to video surveillance and witness statements, and we're putting this out, which I think is some fantastic images of potential items of clothing used with the little girl, and as well as a very good description of her. We want to figure out who she is, put a name to the remains, and then go where the investigation takes us after that.
Last question.
Inspector, I don't know, Mr. Professor, has anyone in the neighborhood, have you gathered any surveillance that's seen someone putting that body there in the dumpster? Or can you confirm also who found the body and how badly decomposed it is?
We obviously know who did find the body, and we've spoken to that person. As Detective Sergeant Foley said, we're very grateful to them. There's a lot of cameras in the area. We've got that about 2-week window where we think the body was actually placed in that dumpster. So that's a work in progress as well. Still gathering that video and then being able to go through that video. Is there any camera that's directed directly at the dumpster? No, there isn't. So it's going to be a matter of looking at the cars that are going by, looking at the people who are walking by, and like I said, that's a 2-week period on multiple cameras. So that's very labor intensive. We have our forensic video analysis unit, thankfully, that might be able to cut down some of that labor time, but that's definitely a work in progress. No one else?
Is the body small enough to have been carried by someone, or would it have had to be a vehicle that brought the body there?
Well, it depends on the person who could potentially be carrying it, I suppose. 36 inches tall. I don't know if we got a weight yesterday. No? But you can imagine a 36-inch tall girl would be fairly easy for somebody to carry. So that's definitely something that we're looking at.
Come by transit, for instance, Castle Spring subways nearby. Someone could have been on transit carrying this as well.
Could have been on transit. That backs out onto the valley as well. Could have been brought up the valley. It could have been brought in a car. We just don't know yet. So, but we will find those answers.
Inspector, just what kind of a challenge does it pose to know that the person may have been deceased for quite some time? I guess in your cases, most homicides are relatively, they happen, fairly recently. So in this case, how much more of a challenge is it that the person may have been deceased for some time and you have to kind of figure it all out?
Yeah, it definitely adds an element to the investigation, but that's what we do. And we have the one of the finest, if not the finest, homicide squad in the entire country working on this, and we will get to the bottom of it, and no matter what it takes. So, all right.
Last
What
question.
type of charges an individual could be facing at this point in the investigation?
At this point, we'd be looking at an indignity to human remains. That could change very rapidly as we get more results from forensic pathology services, but that's where we would be at right now.
Do you expect
All right.
to release the composites yet?
That's one thing that we hope to actually do very, very shortly. So,
This
all right.
concludes today's news conference. A news release has been published and the images are available online. Thank you.
Okay, that wraps things up. A fairly brief press conference from police headquarters, an update on human remains that were discovered at 4:45 p.m. on Monday in a dumpster bin, a construction dumpster bin in Rosedale, an unoccupied under construction home in front of that home. The postmortem was done. The confirmation that this was a little girl between the ages of 4 and 7, black or African heritage mixed race, 3 feet 6 inches tall, a thin build, had all her teeth. Hair was in 4 ponytails braided with elastics, and the girl was wrapped in the blankets that you've seen posted here, these pictures. The body, they believe, of this girl was left anywhere between the 28th of April and May 2nd. However, they say that this little girl could have died anytime going back to as far as last summer. That information is still pending the post-mortem results, the details. Detective Insignia there mentioning that they have a 2-week window of video that they're stitching together from the neighborhood. Still a suspicious death, not a homicide. And the priority right now is to identify this little girl. And they have 6 very experienced detectives working full-time to do that.